Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you are all doing freaking well. Today, we're going to take a look at a really interesting kit. This is the VaporResso Luxe mod with the Skur tank. Not sure about that name, but anyway, this is not just your normal sub-ohm tank. There's some interesting stuff going on, and the mod is pretty unique as well. But it does use the same VaporResso board, the Omni board 4.0 that we saw in the Armor Pro, the Polar, but the button layout is different, which you will see. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Now inside, you are going to have your Skur tank, and then you have your mod. Let's go ahead and peel this stuff off right here. I was sent a couple of this color, okay? So, but I'm assuming it's gonna come in others. Right now it looks pretty plain, but wait until we put batteries in. But we're gonna look at that tank first. And underneath the mod and tank, you have a micro USB charging cable and an extra coil head. Now, I don't think this is production packaging. I think that in the final one, they're gonna have a manual and some other stuff and all that jazz, but I'm just showing you what I have. So here is the tank. This thing holds 8 mLs of liquid. It's pretty heavy duty. There's a lot of stainless steel going on with this, okay? On the base there, you have a fixed 510 pin. Wouldn't use this on hybrid top cap mech mods. At that base, it is 24 millimeters in diameter, but as you can see, it does jet out a bit, okay? So here is your AFC. There is 1, 2, and 3, okay? Decent amount of resistance. Now with this drip tip, it's kind of interesting, all right? First off, it's kind of interesting looking. It's got that sparkle to it, which we don't see super often with tips that come stock with these kits. But this thing unscrews and it's got threading on it, right? But if you don't want to use this, you can use some other 810s that have the O-rings on them, like you've seen Smoke use, and I think VaporResso's used them in the past too. These types of 810s that don't have O-rings, they don't fit, okay? Now, when this tip right here is unscrewed from the tank, you push this open and you fill, all right? If you have another type of drip tip in here, it'll work fine too. But when the tip is screwed in, you cannot open the tank. So basically it's a locking feature, all right? There's good and bad there. It's kind of a pain in the butt if this is the tip you're using to have to unscrew your tip every time and then go to fill, all right? I mean, I just did it pretty quickly, so it's not a huge deal, but it's not as simple as some other tanks out there. Would have rather just seen, you know, a button push or something like that we've seen other manufacturers do. So let's go ahead and dive in because the coil heads are really the interesting thing here. And I believe that this is also compatible with other Baby Beast type of coil heads. Some of the coil heads that I think the energy coils or something are also compatible with, you know, whatever's compatible with Baby Beast will be compatible with this. Now, let's go ahead and look at these coil heads. I first saw these at ECC and was pretty interested in them. Now, this is their strip coil, I believe they're calling it, and this one's straight mesh. You can see the strip coil has bigger holes in between, more like a fencing, chain link fence or netting or something. And these are both 0.18 ohms. But if you see in the middle there, I think they called that like a bullet style or something like that. The airflow comes up through that and then out the sides of that to hit your coil, okay? So they did that partially to, you know, reduce the airflow. It actually smooths the draw out a bit more because if that whole hole was open, it would just be too much airflow, but also be very turbulent. But we saw that in the Smoke Big Baby V2 I recently reviewed with the Species kit. But besides that, it's also supposed to help with leak prevention because the airflow slots that are in this barrel here, like I said, they come out the side, right? Those are raised above the floor down inside there. So liquid could come down and seep down and sit on that floor. And it would take quite a bit for it to get high enough to then get into this airflow compartment. And they also say that usually it'll just recycle that. If any liquid gathers down there, it'll recycle that liquid. You know, you'll be sucking it up and then it'll hit this coil. I haven't experienced spitback problems with this, so it seems to work pretty well. So it's innovative for sure. And also with their wicking, it's a flax paper cotton mix. So, you know, we got to thank Horizon Tech for that. They were the ones that did all the R&D and stuff for that. I don't know if VaporResso is using the exact same mixture that Horizon Tech is or if they came up with their own, but it's nice to see other people trying out flax paper. Now, to prime this, I'm going to try not to get too much liquid down in there because remember, it's just going to sit on the floor there if so. But I'm just going to run a little bit around the sides. Let's go ahead and prime it a little more now. install this back into the tank. I'm gonna have to unscrew this tip here, and now we shall go to fillet. All right, and we're gonna put this out of the way. We'll let that coil marinate while we are taking a look at the mod. So the mod here is about 90 millimeters tall, about 47 millimeters wide. At that platform there, like right there, I think I got about 28, 29, but as you can see, you got that bevel there. So, you know, a 30 probably would still flush out with the face here, but you're gonna see that little gap because of the bevel. 26s should work fine though. 28s will probably look pretty decent. And of course, 25s and 24s will look okay as well. Gold-plated, spring-loaded, 510 pin. You got your button right here. You got this longer bar, but you still have to press it towards the top where that dot is, okay? Press it down there, it does nothing. On the bottom, you got some battery venting. I like the coating on this frame. It feels like it's a zinc alloy or something. It's a pretty heavy mod without batteries, but it's got that nice rougher coating. It doesn't feel like, you know, your normal slick paint. It's got a nice texture to it, and it just feels heavy duty. Now to get into the battery compartment, you go like so. There is your battery door. You get this nice layer of non-conductive coating right here, so your batteries can't short out on it. Magnet, magnet, magnet. And then there is your battery compartment. It says Vaporresso Omniboard 4.0. The plus and minus aren't very big down in there, so it's a little tough to see. Would have been nice if that was bigger or if that was in a different color. Let's go ahead and install our batteries, and there we go. So it vibrates once you put the batteries in. This mod has haptic feedback, which is cool. Let's go ahead and put this door back on. And there is our screen. Now the mod does not come off as very bright, especially under my video lights. It looks better in real life, but like the Armor Pro, it's not the brightest mod in the world because as you can see, the screen's set down a little bit under this panel here. Okay, so it says Vaporresso Luxe right there. These light up, okay, those buttons down there when your screen is on. And you got haptic feedback. To unlock it, 3, now we're unlocked. Now we're adjusting wattage. You get haptic feedback when you touch that. So it scrolls up, scrolls down, like we've seen in other Omniboard 4.0s. This display looks very similar. To get into the menu, 3 clicks on the mode button. And then there is where all the good stuff is. So you got preheats, variable wattage high, variable wattage normal, variable wattage soft. You got the wattage curves right there. You got that super player mode, which I've never used before. I've tried. I don't see it. I think it's kind of pointless, but we've seen it in the other Omni boards. You got the variable voltage. You got custom curves for voltage. You got temperature control stainless steel, nickel, titanium, M1, M2, bypass mode, and then your settings. In your settings, you got time set, brightness. I checked, it's already at its brightest here. Puff counter, your theme color, the smart on and off, which just guesses what wattage you would want to use depending on your ohm load on your atomizer. So it's basically the Omniboard 4.0, like we saw on the Polar and we saw on the Armor, but this one does not have buttons. It's a touch screen that has haptic feedback. So you don't touch it anywhere, but down here you touch it. And it has a nice response to it. So if you're a fan of the Omniboard, you're gonna like this one. So let's go ahead and put a tank on here. Well, the Skur tank. 3 clicks on this button. Locks it, okay? You can still fire, but that locks the buttons down here. Let's unlock it there. And then to turn it off, 5 clicks. And now it's off. Gives you a little vibration. And there's your boot up. Now really my main issue with this mod is I wish the screen was a little bit brighter, and also this panel is a fingerprint magnet, okay? I think maybe if this was a flatter panel, it wouldn't show fingerprints as much, but it's glossy regardless. So it's going to show fingerprints, kind of like your cell phone and stuff like that. If you want to see me dive deeper into this Omni board, I've already reviewed it a few times. Feel free to check out like the Polar kit that I recently reviewed. You could check out the Armor Pro, all that stuff, but it's all basically the exact same. This one's just got a different body and it's got haptic feedback. So there is a look at it in my hand. It's comfortable. It's got that nice rounded feel to it. Kind of reminds me of like that Rinko mod I reviewed a couple of months ago, but the Rinko has more of a curve on the frame as well. But it is heavier than some of the other mods we've seen recently, like the Polar. It's definitely heavier than that. It feels more like a brick. Okay, so let's go ahead, go up top, vape this, and talk about it a little more. Okay, here is the Vaporresso Lux and Skur tank. I have it at 70 watts, airflow is wide open. Let's vape it. Very, very nice. Okay, first off, let's talk about this tank. The cons for me with the tank are this drip tip where you have to unscrew it to be able to fill. That gives you an extra step. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but you can use other 810s that have the O-rings on them if you'd like to. As far as flavor goes, for me, it's about middle of the road when it comes to the mesh coil head. So here's a Falcon here. I'm using an ugly color on a mod that doesn't match. Disregard that. And we will vape this at 70 watts. I think the flavor's a little bit better on the Falcon. The Falcon also has a little more airflow. This is more restricted than most of your mesh sub-ohm tanks. I still like it. I'm still using it at that 70 watts, which is, you know, where I usually use the Falcons here. But the airflow is just going to be a little more restricted. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, part of the flavor thing is I think that maybe some of that airflow misses the coil because it comes in through that center bullet or whatever you'd like to call it, post, whatever, and some of it comes in and it might not completely hit all of that coil. It might go up, all right? And there might be spots of the coil that aren't getting hit, okay? So when you have the coil wide open, you got airflow whooshing through and every part of that mesh coil is getting hit with airflow. Is the flavor bad on this to me? No, I don't think so at all. I think the flavor is actually quite good, and I think that it gets better after a few tanks. But is it the best flavor mesh sub-ohm tank out there? No, I don't think so either. But it also has some features some of the others don't, and one of those is that leak resistance. And you know, with the other one I've been using, normally with mesh coil heads, I find, like even on one of my favorites, like the Falcon here, after about 5 days or so, it starts getting leakier on me. It starts getting a little liquid out of the airflow. I've said that in so many mesh sub-ohm tank videos, and this is the one tank that has not happened to me with, and I think it's because of that design. So to me, it's a very, very innovative coil head, and I applaud Vaporresso for thinking outside of the box and not just making another regular mesh sub-ohm tank coil head. And also you can use other coil heads in this as well. I got to give the tank a big thumbs up because I love that coil head design. The flavor's good enough for me. It's just not the best out of all the mesh sub-ohm tanks, I don't think. And the biggest con for me probably is this drip tip assembly. Oh, also it's a big pro that it holds 8 mLs of liquid. Now, let's talk about the mod. There's not a lot of cons. Really, what it comes down to is I wish the screen was brighter, and it's a fingerprint magnet. I saw this and I complained about it in the Armor Pro. You got this panel right here, but then you can see that the screen is a good, 5 millimeters maybe underneath that panel. And so it's just not as bright as some mods out there. In normal lighting, it's fine. But if I'm out in sunlight or if I'm under these big old video lights here, it's harder to see. It gives you more reflection. Also, it's a big time fingerprint magnet. All right. So just keep that in mind. It's the nature of the beast. Now, as far as the pros with it, love the build quality. It's not as lightweight as some of Vaporresso's other mods, but it's just this frame feels thick and it just feels built to last. I love the button on it. I love the haptic feedback on this, the little panel down here where you press and you get that little bit of vibration when you press it. It's just awesome. Again, and I think I said this in the Smoke Species kit. These guys are starting to take more and more design cues from like the cell phone world and other electronics, which I think is a good thing. And I don't think that, touchscreen capabilities like this are a gimmick. Other things are, but I really like some of the touchscreen capabilities if they're implemented properly, and this one is. Another cool thing about this, and I forgot to mention it in the up close, is that it locks the haptic feedback buttons down here once you start vaping it. So you unlock it, 3 clicks right here, and then you can start adjusting your settings, la-di-da-di-da. But then the first time you take a vape, it locks that back up. So you don't have to lock those buttons manually. It just does it on its own. You still can vape it and stuff. And if you want to lock the whole thing, you can just turn it off, 5 clicks on and off. But it's really nice that it just locks it on its own, so then you don't have to worry about that. Because if it didn't lock it on its own, there'd be a lot of times you'd forget, and when you're holding it, you'd accidentally touch the screen and it would change settings and all that jazz. So, you know, as far as the board goes, all the other pros and cons to it apply that I've said in the past. It's feature packed. It really is. And so, you know, if you're a newer vapor and you get this, don't get too bogged down by it. You don't have to mess with wattage curves. You don't have to mess with the TCRs and TC settings and all that. That's for the advanced vapors that really want to fine tune stuff. But honestly, I don't even use that stuff most of the time. But, you know, it's nice that it's there, and it's just a really good board. The Omni boards are really well known. They fire super duper fast. They have all the features you're going to want, the custom curves, all that good stuff. And they just work well and they last. So VaporResso has just been knocking it out of the park when it comes to mods this year, in my opinion. Also, one other thing to mention too is that this says to have 2.5 amp charging. So they say that you'll charge your batteries from dead in about 1.5 hours, I believe. So all in all, it's my favorite VaporResso mod that they've come out with this year, for sure. You know, like I said, I wish that screen was a little bit brighter. I wish it wasn't a fingerprint magnet. I still love the Polar for dual battery mods, but I think that this even edges it out. And I love the fact that they did some innovation with the tank. So bravo, VaporResso. It's great that people are thinking outside the box and not just doing the same old, same old. Who says you can't innovate sub-ohm tanks anymore in 2018? We're seeing it, guys. We are seeing it. This is definitely going to be a device that I'm going to continue to use. And I think you're going to be able to pick it up for around that $75 range once some of the retailers get it in stock. We will end it there. I'm out of breath. That about wraps it up. Until next time, thanks for watching. Suck my mud.